I'm looking through the names of who's here, have been pretty active and getting pretty much all your work done, so good job. We don't know what's going to happen about when we're going to go back. I know the plan is to go back in May, but there's a lot of talk that we might not even go back then. So just keep working hard, do what you can when you can, and because we just don't know what they're going to tell us about grades or anything like that. So you want to make sure that you're not far behind if they decide to tell us to start grading and putting everything in Power School. You want to make sure you're not behind playing catch up at the end there. So today we are talking about types of laws. So this once again comes from the notes. It was one of your assignments, might have been yesterday, to take notes using the online textbooks pages. Hopefully you guys have accessed those. If not, let me know. But I want to go over the types of laws because that's part of the assignment that we're doing for today, is to go through some scenarios, and I'm going to go through all of those with you, and we'll talk about the types of laws. So when we get to that part, I will be asking you guys to chime in. So hopefully some of you will be ready to unmute and answer some questions for me. Or you can also use the chat box feature. Once again, if you want to try to find that real quick and just say hi, there's a little chat box feature. You can type in responses as well. That's perfectly acceptable for this type of setting. There you go. Hello, Vladimir. Hello, Taylor. Now, if you're on the phone, I think you have to push a button and it'll put up a chat screen, and then you can go back to the PowerPoint. If you're on a computer, you can look at both at the same time. But if you're on a phone, there's a little button you have to push to pull up the chat box, and then you go back to, uh-oh, somebody tried to take control from me. Yeah, be careful about what you're pushing. Let's see what we got. All right, there we go. All right, so let's get started. Types of law. So 4 types of law that we are dealing with in this unit. First type is criminal law. So criminal law, of course, is laws that are created by legislative bodies like Congress or the General Assembly that try to tell us what to do or what not to do. And then the big kind of identifying factor for criminal law is that if you don't do what they say, the law says, or you do something the law told you not to do, what's going to happen to you? Anybody want to try to answer that real quick? What's going to happen to you? You're going to be arrested, right? So, yeah. So basically, that's how you identify criminal law. You got to think to yourself, when this happens, is it possible someone's going to be arrested? That's really what makes it a crime. The other types of law we're going to talk about, like civil law, there's no arrest involved. No one's going to be arrested in those types of situations. But criminal law, if you commit a crime, there's going to be either an arrest or some type of punishment, a ticket, something like that. So this would obviously be laws about murder, robbery, speeding would be something petty, a misdemeanor. Also know that there are 2 types of crimes. There's misdemeanors, which are very basic, petty crimes, and then felonies, which are more serious. So that's how we distinguish the different types of crimes. Any questions about criminal law? All right, civil law sometimes is the one that's more confusing. Civil law is about individuals and organizations and how we relate to each other. You might be involved in an accident. Someone might want to get divorced. There might be some property disputes. Like if I build a fence and I accidentally put it on your land. Well, that's not a crime. I'm not going to be arrested, but there's a problem that needs to be solved. And that's what civil law is for all those other types of situations where there's a dispute or you feel that you've been wronged in some way, but no one has broken a law to where you're going to be arrested. So that's what we mean by civil law. If I sign a contract saying I'm going to repair your car and you pay me $1,000 and then I leave town and I don't repair your car, I may or may not get arrested, but we have a dispute. I haven't finished the work that I promised you I would finish. So you're going to sue me. So when we talk about a lawsuit, we're talking about civil law. All right, constitutional law. Obviously, just like the name implies, it's all about the Constitution, and that could be anything from the powers of government to any of the amendments. So if there's a situation where an amendment is violated, like the 14th Amendment we've been looking at this week, that deals with discrimination, free speech, if you feel your free speech has been violated, or your religious rights, voting rights, that's going to fall under the category of constitutional law. So that's pretty obvious there, what we're talking about. And if any of you guys ever, if you go into law, become lawyers, most of the time lawyers will specialize in a certain type of law. So some go into criminal law, some go into, family law. You might want to be a constitutional lawyer. So that's something to think about if you're interested in getting into law. What type of law would you get into? All right, and then finally, administrative law. The word administrative refers to the executive branch. It could be state executive branch, or it could be the federal executive branch under the president, dealing with the departments, agencies. Remember, we talked about how they were part of implementing laws passed by Congress or the General Assembly. So when the EPA gets a law like the Clean Air Act that they're supposed to implement, well, the law itself might not have enough details in it. So they have to come up with their own rules and regulations to really implement that law that was passed by Congress. Same thing with taxes. If Congress manipulates the tax code, raises or lowers taxes, well, the IRS is going to take that and create its own rules and regulations that help to implement that law. So we call that administrative law. So that's really easy to identify. You're just looking for an agency. So like in these scenarios, we're going to look at if there's an agency involved or part of the executive branch, then obviously it's going to be part of administrative law. So keep that in mind. Did everybody get what they needed there in terms of notes? I don't know who's taking notes. Do you need me to go back to one? Is everybody good? But I can go backwards if you want me to.
Can you go back to constitutional law?
Go back where?
Constitutional law, because I need to see it.
Constitutional, there's constitutional. Brandon, what'd you need?
Oh, never mind.
You good?
Okay, I'm done.
Anybody else need me to go back before we get into the scenarios? All right, so this is where I'm going to have you guys chime in. And you can type it in, or if you want to talk, just talk. So what I'm doing now, like I said, I'm going through these scenarios. So if you don't have this paper handy, you can just grab a piece of paper, number 1 through 18, and get the answers that way, and then go back and look at this paper. So I'm gonna go through all 18 scenarios. All 18 scenarios, and we'll talk about the answers. All right, so the first scenario, an armed robber holds up a service station. So all you're doing is identifying what type of law. So if you did this paper, all you really had to do was put the number in the column. So you see there's a column for each type of law. You just put the number in terms of what type of law. So obviously, who wants to chime in here? What type of law are we dealing with here?
Is it criminal law?
It is obviously criminal law. So robbery is a crime. You shouldn't do it. If you do it, you will be arrested. So that makes it criminal.
Can you put the paper in the screen again so I can know which one to put? So criminal is the third one.
So you would put number 1 in that column for criminal law.
Okay.
Yeah, just stick it in there. All right, number 2. Dealing with divorce here, an amicable divorce, which basically means both sides want to get divorced, basically. What was that?
Civil law.
Civil law.
Civil law. Very good. Civil law. It's a private issue. Family law falls under civil law. So you would put number 2 in the column for civil law. All right, next. This is always a good one because a lot of people don't know what a nativity scene is. So if you don't know, I put a picture there. The mayor wants to put up a nativity scene at Town Hall, and that's the baby Jesus in the manger statues there. So you got to think about, why would this even be a case at all? What would be wrong with this? Anybody want to explain?
Constitutional law?
Giraldi?
Huh?
You want to chime in?
I just thought it would be a constitutional law since it's like different people have different beliefs in religion.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the problem with it being at Town Hall?
Because it's like at a town instead of his house where like different people could see it and they might not believe in like I think Christianity, which is what relates to the nativity scene.
So Town Hall represents the what? You might not even know what Town Hall is.
Like it's a place where it's like it represents like the I suppose like the state government or like their part of jurisdiction.
It's the government, right? It's basically where the government operates, right? So that's where the mayor would be, the city council. They work at Town Hall. So Town Hall is part of local government. So that's the problem here. Remember, in the First Amendment, it says no establishment of religion. So here, because it's a government building, governments are supposed to be neutral in terms of various religions. So if that was put up outside of a government building, some people might have a problem with that. But it would go under constitutional law. All right, next. A store owner burns his store down to collect insurance. Harmony, you want to chime in on that? You can type it in if you want. Store owner burns down his own store.
It's
Brandon
civil
says criminal.
law? Oh, I thought it was civil.
Why would it be criminal? What is the crime if it's criminal?
Can it be civil?
Why do you think it's civil?
Because it has something to do with the organization.
So what's it called if I burn something down on purpose?
Arson?
Arson. There you go. So this is a crime. This is arson. So this wasn't an accident. That's what makes it a crime. He did it on purpose. Oh, insurance fraud. There you go, Brandon. So yeah, you're trying to fraud the insurance company out of their money. So you're trying to get this money illegally by saying your store burnt down, even though you're the one that burnt it down, trying to collect the insurance money. So it does make it a crime, the crime of arson. Welcome, Jazz. I just saw Jazz drop by.
So what are we doing?
Dad, you late.
Well, those of us who are on time are
It's not
going
my
through.
fault.
We're
I
going
did it
through
on my
these
laptop.
answers.
I joined in my laptop, but it didn't work.
You're fine. Just kind of like pick up, and you can always go back and look at the video later. But we're going through these answers on this paper.
Oh, all right.
You got it?
Okay, what question are we on?
We just did number 4, so we're about to do number 5.
Okay, what was 1 to 4?
Number 1 was criminal.
Wait. I need to find the pencil.
Okay.
I'm sorry. All right, number 1.
Number 1 was criminal.
Uh-huh.
Number 2 was civil.
Okay.
Number 3 was constitutional.
And 4?
And number 4, you tell me.
Is the one that burns his criminal?
That is a crime. Yes, criminal. Very good. All right. So number 5. The FDA finds that a new drug has a potentially dangerous side effect.
That's administrative
All right. Well, why would you say that?
because the FDA is part of the government.
Very good. Yeah, they are an administrative agency, part of the executive branch. So their little rules about approving drugs are things that they made, they came up with, and those are types of laws. Because you might be a drug company, and if they don't approve your drug, you might decide to sue them if you don't agree with their ruling about your drug. But it would fall under administrative. All right, number 6. Woman breaks her leg on a neighbor's snow-covered walkway. What type of law are we dealing with here?
Civil?
All right, I hear civil. Has a crime been committed?
No.
You do have an injured person. Does that make it a crime if someone gets injured?
Yeah.
Do you think so?
I don't know.
I don't
a
think
civil
so.
law.
Unless the person
But I think that she
did
could
it to
sue,
them.
like a woman could sue her neighbor, so it'd be
Right,
like
so-
civil law.
You got to ask, would someone be arrested? Would this neighbor be arrested?
No.
No, they wouldn't be arrested, even though this person, when they sue the neighbor, like, what would be their argument?
That they should have.
That they didn't clean up like their walkway, and so she fell.
So you have kind of this obligation to keep your yard, your part of the sidewalks clear. If someone gets hurt because you were negligent, you can be sued for that. Even though you might not be arrested, you haven't committed a crime, but you might be liable. We call it being liable for harming somebody, even if it was an accident. All right, next. African American is repeatedly passed over for a promotion despite her qualifications.
Constitutional.
Why?
So wouldn't that be discrimination?
Very good. So this is a discrimination, probably a lawsuit, but it would still be part of constitutional because you would be talking about violations of the 14th Amendment in terms of equal protection. So constitutional law. Very good. Was that Taylor?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, your names pop up when you talk, so
Okay.
try to give you credit there. Good job.
There's a button that says take control.
Don't take control. Leave me in control. I didn't know y'all could do that, actually.
Yep.
All right, let's keep it moving. All right, a writer breaks her contract with a publishing company. So they paid you $1 million to write a book, and halfway through you decide, I don't want to finish this book, but I'm going to keep the money.
Administrative?
Civil?
Yeah, that would actually, it sounds like it could be criminal because that's pretty bad, but
It's like civil law.
but it is civil. It is still a private issue. You know, the act of lying, not keeping your word, it's not really a crime unless you do it in court. Then it becomes a crime. But if you just lie to someone, even if it's over money, now unless it's fraud, if you were lying and you never did anything, you could be arrested for fraud. But here I think it's more of a civil matter. All right, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration makes airbag cutoff switches legal.
Administrative?
Administrative, so that's the big clue, is it involves an executive agency here. So when they make a ruling, they make a decision, that's part of administrative law. All right, next. Woman sells drugs to 3 teenagers.
That's a criminal.
That is criminal. Yes, that is criminal. That's pretty obvious. Some of these are pretty easy. All right, we're going to move on. A group wants to stop a KKK parade.
Constitutional?
Why?
Because isn't a KKK group like a racist group against colored people, and they don't want anything to do with us, and then they have history of killing them and doing really cruel stuff to them?
Okay, so you are correct, but in terms of what this case would be about, first of all, does the KKK have a right to have a parade?
No.
If they're not burning any crosses or
Would
threatening
it be
anyone,
like a peaceful rally?
could they just march down the street and like have a parade?
Yeah,
It's
they
like
can.
a peaceful assembly.
So technically they could. So you can see the picture here. Those are protesters who are protesting an actual KKK parade. So that tells you that the parade happened. So why does the courts let the KKK have a parade? Why would they let them have that?
Because I think it's like it's their right to peaceful assembly. Like
Yep, their right to assemble, their right to express their views, no matter how ugly their views are. As long as they don't cross the line of hurting someone, they can still have these types of demonstrations. So yeah, so this would be constitutional though, but it's more about the First Amendment rather than the 14th Amendment, because it's more about the KKK's right to have a parade and to voice their opinions, that type of thing.
I'm tired.
All right, next one's pretty obvious. The killing of a man over money.
Criminal.
Obviously criminal. Murder. We don't know the details, but if we were going to pick the law, it'd still be criminal. All right, 13th, the Department of Labor wants to raise the minimum wage.
Administrative.
That would be administrative because we're dealing with a department here, Department of Labor. It's part of the executive branch. Very good. Let me know if I go too fast. A child is hurt when a high chair collapses. I did find that is an actual picture of a high chair that's been recalled because babies have been injured in it. So hopefully you don't have that high chair somewhere around the house. Civil, why?
It sounds the most right.
Okay. So kind of go through the process of what's going to happen. You put a baby in it, it collapses, the baby gets hurt. Is someone going to be arrested?
No, but they can sue, so it's civil.
You can sue, right?
The company would, right? Yeah.
Well, you would sue the company. Yeah, you could sue the company. Yeah, no one actually would be arrested unless they intentionally made these high chairs knowing that they could hurt somebody. Sometimes companies just make really bad products and then we don't know they're bad until people start using them, and then they start breaking easily, or something about them was overlooked and people get hurt. It happens really all the time. That's why it's important that the government inspect all these products before we buy them so people aren't hurt in the process. All right, teenagers killed in a gang fight.
Criminal.
Once again, that's pretty obvious. Criminal. Child runs away from home.
Civil.
This is an interesting one. Because this really is about, there's criminal laws for adults, but there are also criminal laws that only apply to children. This is actually a crime. If you are underage and you run away from home, you will be charged with a juvenile crime.
Really?
Yeah, that's true.
So you can't run away from home?
No, you are legally.
No, sir.
You're legally bound to your family until you are an adult or emancipated, something like that.
Well, that's.
But I mean, people don't run away for fun. Usually, if a kid runs away, it's because something's wrong at home.
Now, if you run away because of a problem, then you need to go to someone and tell them about that. You can't just disappear and run away and not let anyone know, because then you are considered a runaway, and then you'll probably end up in some sort of juvenile detention or on probation or something like that.
You might have to go to a life skills class for that, probably.
So yeah, so there are certain things that are juvenile crimes just because of your age. So running away is one of those.
Well, we should take that away, that law. I don't like that.
All right, driver hits a pedestrian and flees the scene of the accident.
Criminal.
Criminal, what do we call that?
What?
What do we call the crime?
run.
What's the crime?
Hit and run.
A hit and run.
Hit and
Hit
run.
and run, very good, hit and run. All right. A magazine publishes a false story claiming a movie star abused his children.
Criminal.
You might think it's criminal, but no one would actually go to jail over this.
So is it civil law?
So it's just civil, yeah.
Where are the people in the magazine?
Yeah, that's an old story, but I forgot Katie's name, but Tom Cruise is the guy there. But yeah, newspapers like the Inquirer, they'll publish really salacious, sometimes fabricated stories, and because of freedom of the press, they're allowed to publish those stories. But if you feel that you've been hurt by those stories, like if you can't get a job after the story, or you lose your job, and the story was false, and you could prove that they knew it was false, then you can sue them for damages. We call that libel, publishing false stories. Now, sometimes the press will publish a story that they really thought was true. And then what they do is they usually will print some sort of what we call a retraction saying, we're sorry, we found out later that this story wasn't true, that type of thing. Oops. Where's the rest? Is that the last one? Oh, that was the last one. Okay, any questions?
Wait, that was the last one. I had my numbers mixed
Yep.
up then.
That was number 18. So any questions on anything? Any of the other? Go ahead.
Can we ask questions outside of this assignment we're doing?
Yeah, you can. Yeah. If you got any questions, some of you, I don't know if you need to go back and finish week 1 work. Some of you might need to go back and finish some things from week 1. Make sure you do that. But other than that, I hope you guys have a great spring break. I don't know where anyone's going because we can't really go anywhere.
Right,
But
that's stupid.
everyone's still kind of stuck. So if you do, I'll be around next week online and stuff still. So if anyone does any work next week, that's up to you. Nothing new will be posted, but you can still contact me if you need to. If you have any questions about anything, that won't be a problem. Everybody good?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I hope you guys stay safe. And I will see you guys next time.